I just sort of want to bring in something too. Is I think last week or the week before, and I'm not really sure who brought it in, but there was this sense that suddenly you were feeling really angry about certain things, and you recognize it actually wasn't your anger. And I think one of you had said, "That's not usually me. I'm not usually this angry. I'm not this kind of hostile. I don't usually have this kind of hostility within me." And I think I'm not sure if it's Itoya or Jude who brought that up, and just kind of talk about that and how you reconciled what was yours and what was not yours, and just the impact of carrying this level of hostility, this carrying rage, this level of trauma that you had to kind of work out, and the risks involved about figuring out whose stuff is this, right? Because I think a lot of times for a lot of us Black and brown folks, we do carry around a certain amount of anger, and rightly so. I mean, we do live in basically kind of a hostile world. But sometimes when that anger is not ours, I think, Itoya or Jude, if you can kind of speak to that and how you figured out what was your true emotion, if we go back to the true north thing, and what was not, and how you worked with that, and how did you give it back, or how did you keep it, or how did you work with that?
I don't know if that was me actually.
Well, I can't remember which one of the two of you brought that. And I think we called it projective identification.
Yeah,
Was it you,
I
Jude?
can't. It was Jude, wasn't it?
Yeah, okay, Jude,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I think that's a big thing for all of us. Yeah, could you kind of talk about what that was like for you, and then the discovery that you made?
Um, yeah, it was in relation to another member of the company who was just making a mockery of the situation that the characters were in. Um, but yeah, that projective, what was it? Projective?
It's called the term is called projective identification. That was your new words.
Identification. Yeah, it was great because it suddenly made me realize, like, though I dislike his performance, um, the level of animosity I had towards him was disproportionate, and it still is. The guy winds me up. I can't deny it. Um, but it's also understanding why that person is doing what they're doing, and what how I'm feeding that person by giving them the reaction that they want.
Which was, in your case, what was the reaction you thought they wanted from you?
They wanted me to hate them. They wanted me to dislike them. That's what they wanted, and I was aware that I was feeding into that. I was giving that person food, and that food was myself. I was giving too much of myself to the person, and for a person who I don't think about outside of the space, they have no impact on my life, and I was giving them so much of myself. Um, so it was actually it was great because at the height of that discovery of that term projective identification, I think I was getting very close to the edge of my temper with the person. Um, and that term actually sort of allowed me to lift the lid off the pan a little bit, you know. Um, it made me take a step back and go, whatever they're doing is it's not about us. It's about that individual, why they constantly needed to feel the center of attention, to feel that level of hatred towards them. And from speaking to other people in the company, I've become aware that I'm not the only one. There are people of the dominant caste who feel the same way about him, and I was like, okay, this is the way this person navigates themselves through life. They try and generate this animosity towards them, and then sort of in a hope of acting the victim and being oblivious when it's turned back on them. So that was really helpful for me to sometimes you have to just take a step back and go, this is not helping my true north. this level of animosity is alien to me. So yeah.
Yeah. Toya or TY, have you ever been in a similar situation where you start to feel there's something that's not you? Like I think what Jude was saying, the level of hatred, the level of animosity to someone that he barely even knows, but he was carrying it. I remember when you came in with that, Jude, there was a lot of strife in your system. There was a lot of upset and sort of like
The cumulative nature of it as well, you know.
Sorry, say it again.
Sorry, I was just saying. I was saying it's just the cumulative nature of it as well. You know, after 100 shows of somebody doing that to you, you know, it's.
I think I've definitely been in those sorts of situations. Definitely more so at work. For example, you just have the manager, the supervisor that seems to carry themselves in a way that they're almost asking for people to dislike them, and you find yourself carrying so many negative feelings that you don't need to carry. Because I'd like to generally think that I'm a happy person. I don't dislike anyone. I try not to dislike anyone. I don't think it's a good use of your energy. But yeah, you've often come across these sorts of people where they're like energy vampires. I don't know whether they're doing it, whether it's one of those things where they're doing it consciously. Is it because of their upbringing? And regardless, I don't think that matters too much. I guess, I mean, it does matter to them, but as long as you can see those individuals for what they are and what they're doing to you, and allow yourself to have that space every time again you feel it in the body, it's like, oh, there's that again. So no, let that go, because that's not on me. And I think that's such a difficult distinction to make. You know, what is yours and what is other people's, and I think that comes into being more, you know, aware of your own traumas as well. You know, you have to do the diving in, because I guess one thing, maybe it's not going to always be helpful to assume that it's the other person, as long as you know it's not you. But yet that's the tricky thing. How do you know what's yours and what's theirs? And I suppose that's when you need you know, something like therapy, or you know, a conversation with someone who's maybe outside of that and knows, you know, I don't think everyone's going to be qualified, of course. But yeah, I suppose that's where the work comes in. As long as you're doing the work on yourself to realize, okay, this is where me ends and this is where you begin, and keeping that gap between is all you can do, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yes. So for me, I don't know. I mean, for this show, anyways, there's perhaps been like one or two moments where I have been frustrated and annoyed. I think for me, what it is it takes a lot for me to get to that state, because I'm a lot of the time usually the person to want to dispel, like just be like, nope, it's not worth my energy. Nope, you know, you're not paying me enough to feel like this. Nope, you know, or I'm the person trying to dispel for other people, but then sometimes I take that. Then it for me dispelling from other people, it finds its way latching onto me, and then later on I don't realize that it's there. Um, but it does take a lot. It takes a lot for me to get to that state. Um, in this situation, I think when it comes to this show, um, especially anything to do with race, especially anything to do with repetition of it, that that's something that will wind me up. But because I know at the end of the day, I won't see these people after the show's done. I don't socialize with them. You know, I don't go out for drinks. I don't hang about and chat or whatever. All these things. I allow myself to kind of dispel from that. Um, and I think that's partially how I kind of deal with it. Because I don't pretend. I can't be all smiley when there's a problem. You will know there's a problem because I don't talk to you. or you know there's a problem, or you know there's a situation where, because I avoid you, so that I don't get into that state where I can't be in control.
Yes.
I think that's how I generally kind of handle myself, whether in the show, whether in my personal life, whether, you know, in the outside world. I think it does revert around, is this worth losing, giving my energy for, if that makes any sense? Like, you know, like, it's, unless I'm not answering the question correctly, then can you give me clarity of what you mean? Is that what is that related to the question that you asked, Sean?
Yeah. I think there's be more specific when I think what we were talking. Well, I think TY also said it. It is about, fundamentally, it's about knowing yourself well enough. And then how do you make that decision, whether it is your stuff, that you have to handle your own trauma, your own anger, your own sense of being victim, or even hostility towards somebody. When is it really yours and when is it not yours? But the other person's own are so strong, like what Jude was saying, in that he unwittingly, he didn't realize that he was taking on that other person's stuff. You know, it's called projective identification, because the other person is projecting their stuff onto us, because it's like they can't hold, it's like their bucket of hate is so full, they can't hold anymore. And so then it projects on the nearest person, who then takes it on board and actually feels, yeah, I don't know why I'm hating this person, but God, I really hate you. And start doing things a little bit out of their own norm. It's not to say that Jude is not capable of hating, he is, but not necessarily in this kind of particular situation. So we're basically talking about, so by giving the group the word projective identification, Jude then could sit back and go, oh my God, I'm carrying somebody else's hate. I'm carrying somebody else's self-loathing, because I think Jude at one point said there was a certain amount of self-loathing that was coming up. But by giving it another expression, you can say, wait a minute, hold on, this really isn't my stuff. I'm really looking at a person who actually has a lot of self-loathing, who really doesn't like themselves, but can't own it, can't talk about it, but must put it on somebody else. And so Jude was carrying not his stuff, but somebody else's. I think that's what we were talking about. It's just that word now is another tool that you can use to separate what's yours and what is the other person's. And then also with Jude, how then best could Jude minimize the risk to himself and then actually counter what this person was doing, so that you don't become also personally involved in this other person's narrative unwillingly, and the impact that can have on us. Because when we're in that mode, you know, we start acting out from that position, and we don't understand, why am I so hateful? Why am I being so disagreeable? Why am I being so angry? Why am I so touchy? When generally that would not have been part of Jude, because again, Jude doesn't even really know this person.
Yeah. And I think,
yeah.
Yeah, no, okay. Yeah, no, so it's along of the lines of what I was saying then. So I think the main part is the fact that because Jude is Tom Robinson for most of them, and he interacts with these, you know, with the actors, with these individuals that have this exchanges, and he has this exchange with them all the time. That is a primary kind of, you know, that underlying conversation that you have with someone when acting. You know, you know, there's a exchange, and because the exchange is not being played truthfully to the show, and also, you know, taken onto, it is made as a selfish, you know, approach, then that affects. But because I'm in that position where all I do is sit and watch the show and support, as watch the audience and also watch the principal characters you know, tell the story. there is a sense of, like I said, there is a sense of, you know, dispelling, you know, kind of like I'm from there, so I'm not as close to the fire,
Yes.
As Jude is. Jude is in the fire. Do you know what I mean? And I'm just getting slight burns here and there, but those burns, I can walk away from those burns. You know, I can walk away from when it's a bit too hot for me. And then, like I said, when it then comes to the, you know, personal, you know, after the show, going to the pub, etc., etc. You know, that decision to whether to go and, you know, to socialize or not, that also is something that falls to me. So I think I've done well to be able to dispel myself from that. Of course, there are moments where it has been tricky. If it's something that is not just something that's out of the show, that, you know, comes away from the show, then that's where it's a bit more tricky. That, yeah, you do have to, like, I have checked, okay, is this me or is this the other person? But I've not found myself in that, in many of those situations. What I have found is when I've tried to strike conversations with certain people, whether it is of the cast, whether it is of the creative team behind, you know, if there is a sense of energy that I sense that is not going to go well, then I completely stay away from them. I literally, you know, close them off. I don't even entertain that idea. Jude is well aware of this, too, as well aware of this, you know. So I don't, because I know myself, as you said, not well enough to know that a black man talking or saying something would then be interpreted in a way that would completely create chaos in that company. And the last thing I need and want is that, you know, I'm there to do my job, and I'm there to, you know, tell this man's story that is Tom Robinson, and come home to my family.